Hey, hello there, I'm Dennis. Welcome to Life Home and My Linux Journeys. Today we're going to be talking about installing Arch Linux. And if you're familiar with Arch Linux, then you're familiar with archlinux.org, the web page, and you've came here often, and you already see that the new medium now provides a installer. This is what we're going to do. We're going to install the guided installer, and as you'll see, we do not have a method or getting the XFCE desktop in the installer, but we can install everything else. So let's see how that works out. If you click on here where it says other methods, it'll show you this. Gives you all these different methods in order to install Arch Linux. But if you click on Archinstall, which is what we're going to be running, it tells you here, archlinux.org index.php/archinstall, that it's already on the ISO, and all we have to do to start the installer is to type in Archinstall, press enter, and here it tells you the steps that we're going to go through to do that. Also found installation under Python Archinstall to read the docs, this installation guide here. It goes through a little more detail about what it's going to do and when you do it, setting the root password. I don't really agree with some of this stuff. Like, for instance, here, this step is optional, but it is recommended to skip this step for the root password, and I'm not sure that's smart. Anyway, I'll put this link in the description. And I also found the Arch Linux Arch installer at GitHub. And it tells you here that I'm assuming that this is in an Arch ISO that's older than and already doesn't have this in there, but it tells you to start with to install it, Arch install, Pacman S and Arch install. You can git clone it, you can PIP install it, and once you have the Arch installer installed, or if it's already installed, as is the case in the new ISO, you could run Python -m Arch install guided. I did both methods, and I really literally couldn't see any differences in it. Let's get started. So I've got Arch Linux set up in my virtual box. I'm going to go ahead and it's in the EFI mode. That's the only way this new guided installer will work. And it's in a virtual box. I've given it 4 gigabytes of RAM, 2 cores of my processor, and I believe I gave it a 56.5 gigabyte hard drive, virtual hard drive. The first thing you're going to be presented with, you can tell immediately there's some artwork going on. Wiki said type in Arch install, or archlinux.org said type in Arch install. First one was going to be the keyboard. This will be the mirrors. Here we're going to say select one of the disks. You can either select a number or type in the area or type in the path. I selected 1 because that's SDA1. And then it wants to know about the file system that you're going to use. And in this case, I'm going to select ext4. Then I'm not going to encrypt it. Just hit enter. Now for a host name, I'm going to say arch_guided. When you got your host name done, press enter. Your host name can be anything and have numbers and all kind of stuff in it. So here we're going to get a root password, and we'll verify the root password. Now we're going to create a user, Dennis, password for Dennis. Verify it. Now, is Dennis going to have sudo or super user rights? Absolutely, yes. Okay, so here, if you select one of either 0, 1, 2, or 3, or 4, you're going to get a working desktop. But if you'll notice, XFCE is not there, so I opted for number 5. And that'll give me at least some of the Xorg drivers. And here we're asked to select our video driver. So I selected Intel. I selected 0. Now I'm going to select AMD. And here we're going to need a time zone. In my case, it's capital A, America, / capital C, Chicago. All right, it's ready. It's ready to get going. So it says you right here, it's going to copy the ISO network over. I selected that so that I don't have to redo it. It'll automatically be done. Now that's particularly useful if you're using the IWCTL in order to connect to a Wi-Fi, because now that configuration will be just copied right over onto your working system. It doesn't install a whole lot of stuff, but you can see right here it's base devel, Linux firmware, EFI boot manager, and Nano. Now, this guided install is basically in the experimental stages, and they're trying to work out the kinks. But I'm a little confused by this, to be honest with you, because if you needed a guided install or some other method of getting Arch Linux besides the Arch Linux way, there are a ton of options. I mean, the first thing that come to my mind was Esnick's. He's got an EZArcher, and if I was going to do a guided install like this, I would follow his, because you're going to get a lot of the stuff that you don't get during this guided install. But I also understand that here we're going to get very basic, minimum, and nothing extra. So here I selected Xorg a while ago, and we're going to get the server, Xinit or Shinit, and Mesa. All right, installation complete without any errors. You may now reboot. But as usual, I'm not going to reboot. Let me Control L to clear that screen. Now let's look and see what it did. LSBLK, we got 2 partitions on our hard drive, SDA1, which is 512, and it wasn't mounted in the ordinary spot. It's mounted to boot, and we got SDA2. So let me power off, bring up my VirtualBox, take that ISO out of the storage category here, right click on it, remove attachment, say OK, and let's restart it. Now remember, I did not install a desktop. The only thing I installed basically was Xorg. I'm going to sign in under my username first, make sure that works. Give it my password, and it works. Control D now will exit this, and I can log back in as root. I won't have to invoke sudo while installing any other program. Okay, so you can see multi-libdevel is not enabled by default either. And just out of curiosity, grub, I did not see that come in. So it does not have grub. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare myself for the XFCE desktop. And I'm going to go ahead and use the -- needed, so that if it does have any of these things, it'll just bypass them. As you can see, though, it didn't have a lot of those things. It had a bare minimal. Here we had 15 packages of Xorg that was not installed. And you probably wouldn't have any problems not installing them, but you might. All right. Now it's time to get us a desktop. And again, I'm going to preface it with needed, just in case there's anything in one of these packages, it'll just skip right over it. But I don't think so. It's kind of a habit of mine now to preface it with that needed. In fact, I've written my alias when I'm doing upgrades to automatically include that. Or I'm sorry, I've made aliases that include the needed in my installation when I run an install. So we're going to get the XFCE, the XFCE goodies, the XDG user diars, XDG utils, network manager applet. It did install network manager, but it's not enabled. We're going to get USB utils, GVFS, NTFS-3G, Pacman contrib, Git, wget, Yagil, DOSFS tools, mtools, snail, mdan, adm, bash completion, numlock X, mandb, man pages, dialog, WP supplicant, WPA supplicant, wireless tools, netctl, init utils, lightdm, GTK greeter, lightdm, GTK greeter settings. I can spell it right. And press enter. Enter. Bring up arrow, bring all that back. Luckily, it tells you what the error is, so you can just go back to it. All right. As you could tell, I paused the video, and we're going to come back in when it's already done all the downloading, and it's just about through installing. There we go. So now let's enable the network manager. You'll see here that it's not already done. All right. Now I'm going to enable the lightdm service. Got a symlink saying it's created. Now let's just see if there's any update. It is possible. It happened to me just last week or so. Gonna reboot. And we should be able to reboot into a XFCE desktop. Welcome to Arch Linux. Give it my password. There we go. All right, so during the base installation, we didn't get anything for our volume. And you might be able to see if I quit moving the display around, you might be able to see that I have no volume at the volume icon upper right. So let's make sure that sudo's working and we have any updates. We do. Not. Clear that screen. All right, so now we're going to, as you can see, I don't have the audio drivers going, so I'm going to install the audio stuff. Got also utils, also plugins, pulse audio, and Payboot control. Select our repositories and press enter on the go ahead and install prompt. And now I'm going to have to restart in order to have that work. Welcome to Arch Linux. Like I say, I have really mixed feelings about this installer. Personally, so far, I haven't seen the benefit. If a guy's got enough knowledge to run this guided install, I think he's probably got enough knowledge to do the regular Arch install. And now we have volume. Always good. And let's see what we get. Nothing except XFCE bare minimal stuff. All right, so it looks like we got a bare minimal install, and it's ready for us to basically tweak it and make it ours. Install the software we know we're going to need, but you only have the base install. So a lot of this stuff that you want to install is going to require dependencies, and you're not going to have them. So you'll have to do that first. But if you've made it this far, you know how to do all that. So here we got SDA2, got 3.5 gigs after the completed installation, which is, I believe, maybe a tenth more than what I normally see. Some difference, but not much. Go ahead and get rid of that pesky battery thing there, since I'm in a virtual box and not on a laptop. And we're going to close this video out. There we go. So we've installed Arch Linux using the guided installer. And I'd be remiss in not saying that I'm a little confused. Why? Ever since I've been introduced in my short Linux lifetime, it was Arch one way, and then you had all these respins. Well, if you want to install Arch and you don't want to do it the Arch way, which is now confusing because they have a guided installer. So there are a lot of other options to get the same results, or actually better results, if you include stuff like the codecs that you're going to need to use Parole Media Player or what have you. There are other ways. Like I said, the first one that comes to my mind is the EZArcher by Mr. Esniks. And there's others. I've done reviews on probably 5 or 6 that are like guided installers. The Zen installer, several others, Calam installer. So I'm not sure really how this fits in, where they're going with it. It does say that it's kind of a test thing. And, I'm not sure. If they want my input, the truth is, I could have had all this done and installed my XFCE desktop in probably about the same amount of time. So it really didn't save me any time. But now there's a lot of tweaks that I need to go on and do that I would have ordinarily done during my install, during the normal installation. I'm not sure. It's there. If you want to try Arch, it does give you a quick way to try just the basic Arch and kind of see what's happening with it. And they do have some support, the extra support now for the guided. If you have a question, you can ask about the guided install. I think they require or ask you to include the archinstall.log file. Okay, they're going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you on another one. Peace out. Bye.